Now, over 12,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel this year to reach the UK, that in spite of the Home Secretary, Priti Patel's tough stance on illegal crossings. But the UK, not alone when it comes to tackling large numbers of migrants, when it comes to people trying to cross borders into Western Europe. The Hungarian Foreign Minister says migration pressure at the country's southern border has reached a new level of danger. Peter Siarto is in the UK at the moment discussing the war in Ukraine, the migrant crisis and Hungary's relationship with Britain. I'm delighted to say he's joining me here in the studio, fresh from talks with Liz Truss, Britain's Foreign Secretary. Welcome to you, and we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I was in your country in 2015 for the migration crisis. I remember being struck at the time by the muscular stance taken by Viktor Orban at the time. It wasn't very popular with much of the mainstream media elsewhere, but it was notable that a lot of those migrants who were trying to cross into Hungary and then ultimately to Germany chose to go around your country. Did that tough stance work in your view?
Well, I can tell you that we proved to be successful during the last 7 years to protect our border. And we had a clear goal, and we still have this clear goal, is to protect our people from those illegal migrants who are now threatening us with weapons. They are having now weapons, and they are not shy enough not to use them. During the recent days, they were shooting on each other very close to the Hungarian border. Now they continue to attack our policemen who are protecting our border.
Which border are we talking about? The one with Serbia?
With Serbia, yeah, the one with Serbia, which is the external border of both the European Union and the Schengen zone.
Peter, I've got to tell you, when I was there in 2015, I saw your riot police who were formed up on the line with the Serbian border there. And they eventually responded with tear gas, but only once they'd been faced by a deluge of rocks and masonry from migrants who were so upset that they simply couldn't force their way into a neighbouring country.
Look, here, what I can tell you is the following. International law and national law both speak very clearly. You are only allowed to enter a territory of another country if you are entitled. In a way, either you have the necessary documentation or you are fleeing from war, from a country which is directly impacted by the war. And no, you have no chapters of international law which would allow you to cross a border between two peaceful countries without documentation, aggressively, whatever. Serbia and Hungary are both peaceful countries. There's no reference in international law which would force us to let these people come in.
But they didn't actually want to stay in Hungary, did they? They were using Hungary as a transit route to Germany. Do you blame Angela Merkel for effectively saying to 1 million migrants, come on?
No, with all our respect to the Chancellor, I definitely don't want to accuse her with anything. I rather accuse Brussels and George Soros, because those NGOs, which are financed by the network of George Soros, are organizing migration itself. They are financing the pro-migration organizations. They are financing the trafficking activities, and Brussels encourages migration basically on a daily basis with statements, with lack of strong stance, and with international agreements like the post-Cotonou.
Well, so, they would say, they're not here to answer that charge, OK? And the George Soros stuff, I don't want to get into that because I can't talk about it. I don't know about it. But I would say that Brussels would argue, wouldn't they? Look at Frontex. Look at what we've done in countries like Greece now. We've started to beef up the borders. We've learned from our mistakes. We're spending the money. We're putting border force officials there. Do you buy any of that?
No, I don't buy this argument, because if this had been true, we would not have been forced to stop 110,000 illegal migrants only this year. Only this year. We are now just in July, right? Beginning of July. So like 6 months have passed. And 110,000 illegal migrants had to be stopped at our southern border. If the protection of the external borders worked out well, if Brussels was not in favor of migration, this would not be the case.
Are any of them Ukrainians? I mean,
No. This is a totally different issue. When it comes to Ukraine, this is our eastern border. We have received already 830,000 Ukrainian refugees. And I want to underline the word refugees, because there's a war in Ukraine. Hungary is a neighboring country to Ukraine. Where should they go if not to the neighbors? And I come back to international law again. According to international law, if you have to flee from war, then you are entitled to stay on the territory of the next safe country. And Hungary is a next safe country. So it's obvious that we allow all the refugees from Ukraine to come in. But we do not allow those migrants who crossed several safe countries to enter the territory of Hungary.
Look, you just had a meeting with the Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss. I don't expect you to be able to divulge the nature of your conversation. Maybe you want to, I don't know. But let's say you'd have a meeting with Priti Patel, our Home Secretary, our Interior Minister, who's grappling with these thorny questions of how to keep that permeable border, even the one we have with our own sea, the English Channel, safe from illegal migration. What would your advice be?
Unfortunately, I couldn't give him an advice, putting into consideration that you have a maritime border and we have a land border. In the land border, it's obvious that you need to build physical infrastructure. That's why we have built fence. President Trump wanted to build wall, we wanted to build fence, and we definitely did build it. We have 2 layers of fence. We have 24/7 patrolling, surveillance, and once we see migrants attacking the border, our police forces can go there and push them back. But once again, I want to underline that these migrants are behaving now incredibly aggressively, using weapons, throwing stones, pieces of concrete, wood, whatever, on our police.
Why is this story, as you present it, with the increasing levels of violence, and presumably a lot of that's orchestrated by people traffickers, who knows?
Sure.
Why is that not getting more coverage, do you think?
Because the liberal mainstream says that we need to have open societies. It doesn't matter where you are coming from, who you are, we have to be welcoming. And in our case, it's obvious that we would like to keep Hungary as it is, a Hungarian country. And this is not because we would be good or bad people. This is because we want Hungary to be preserved as it is now. And we are not ready to allow those people to enter our territory who want to come to Hungary this way, totally disrespectful to our regulations, to our expectations of behavior, to our laws, to our authorities, to our people. We don't want such kind of people on the territory of our country. And we, as a sovereign country, must have the right to make our decision on our own, whom we allow to enter the territory of our country and whom we do not allow. This is a matter of sovereignty.
Foreign Minister, we've only got a little over a minute. I want to talk to you briefly, if we know it's fine. It's been very interesting, and particularly about what's happening on your border and the levels of violence. But I want to turn briefly. You talk about keeping Hungary Hungarian, if I can put it that way. You've been criticised for your pro-natal policies, the bribes, as some people see it, offering young Hungarians money, the opportunity not to pay any income tax, free IVF, so that they have children. In the jargon, we call it pro-natalism. There'll be some people in the West looking at that saying it's about keeping Hungary ethnically pure. That's the criticism. Do you have a problem with that?
Sorry to say, but this is a stupid criticism because, we really consider it a value if there are more and more children being born in the country. That's why we support the people, the mothers and the fathers, to have as many children as it is just possible. The principle behind our policy is that if you have a kid, you must not end up in a worse situation compared if you did not have a kid. Okay, so that's why we ensure the free schooling. That's why we give all kinds of benefits based on children in the family when it comes to housing, when it comes to the tax exemption. So the more kids you have, the biggest part of your salary is being exempted from personal income tax. And this is our most strategic political focus, to help children to be born.
It's interesting you use the word strategic, because you spend, the Hungarian government, just ponder this, viewers and listeners, 4 times more on these sorts of offers, pro-natalist measures, than you do on your defence budget. And you spend plenty on defence. Peter Siarto, we have to leave it there, but we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you.